The feed in a drum supplements are carefully formulated to provide the essential nutrients that help support optimum forage utilization and reproductive performance. Now you can see the difference.
Cattle rely heavily on the microscopic organisms within their gastrointestinal tract to digest fibrous feeds such as pasture, hays, straws, and silages. These microscopic organisms are of three general classes: bacteria, fungi, and protozoa. The primary location of these microbes is in the first two chambers of the stomach, the rumen and the reticulum. Each ounce of stomach fluid contains up to 1 trillion or more bacteria, as well as millions of protozoa and fungi. The largest of these microbes, called the protozoa, can be clearly seen in this video when stomach contents are viewed at 100-fold magnification. The stationary particles are the roughage, and the oval-shaped moving objects are protozoa. Microbes in the gut require a continuous supply of protein, minerals, vitamins, and energy. In situations where any of these important elements are in short supply, the population of microbes cannot reproduce optimally. This frequently is the case with roughage-based diets, which can reduce overall digestibility of the animal's diet. This video image shows the stomach contents of an animal fed a high roughage diet with no supplement. This second video image is taken from an animal that received the same roughage, but this animal also had access to the feed in a drum supplement. Note the marked increase in numbers and activity of the protozoa when the animal has access to the feed in a drum supplement. A direct comparison of stomach contents from supplemented and unsupplemented cattle reveals a dramatic difference in the protozoal populations. The number of protozoa was increased by nearly 50% when cattle were fed the feed in a drum supplement. Increasing the microbial population increases the capacity for digestion of forages, ultimately making a greater amount of nutrients available to the cow. It is in this way that a relatively small amount of supplement can have such a profound effect on cattle performance. University research has documented very similar effects of the feed in a drum supplementation on populations of bacteria, ultimately increasing both the number of bacteria and their digestive activity. This image was taken using a scanning electron microscope at 10,000-fold magnification. It shows the surface of a piece of cellulose fiber after exposure to the rumen of an unsupplemented animal. The arrows point to oval-shaped bacteria that have attached themselves to the fiber. Note that the fiber is still very much intact after exposure to the rumen environment for 24 hours. This image illustrates the changes in numbers and activity of bacteria when the feed in a drum supplements are fed. As with the protozoa, numbers of bacteria increase substantially with the feed in a drum supplementation. Also note the voided areas in the fiber surface that are evidence of extensive fiber digestion. This is a closer view of the fiber exposed to the rumen in cattle fed the feed in a drum. Magnification at 15,000-fold reveals numerous round and cylinder-shaped bacteria that have attached themselves to the fiber with thread-like structures. Equally evident are the large void areas that are indicative of extensive digestion of the fiber. This graph will illustrate for you the effect of the feed in a drum supplementation on fiber digestion. Pure cellulose was suspended in the rumen of supplemented and unsupplemented cattle for up to 24 hours. As you can see, small amounts of supplement have an enormous impact on digestion of the fiber. Let's take a moment now to review the impact of the feed in a drum supplementation. First, populations of bacteria and protozoa increase substantially when cattle are fed the feed in a drum, as indicated by this graph, showing a 50% increase in rumen protozoa. Ultimately, increasing the microbial population will lead to greater digestion of forages. Digestion is also an important factor that limits the animal's ability to eat lower quality roughages. Essentially, the animal eats until the rumen is filled. If the digestion of roughage is increased, as with the feed in a drum supplementation, additional space is created within the stomach, making it possible for the animal to eat more roughage. This effect has been demonstrated repeatedly in university research with the feed in a drum supplements. In spite of modest intakes of the feed in a drum blocks, typically 0.5 to 0.75 pounds per day, supplementation increased overall feed intake by 40%. Most of this increase is directly attributable to the impact of the feed in a drum on digestion and intake of roughages. Feeding the feed in a drum supplement provides essential nutrients that are required to maintain a healthy, viable population of fiber-digesting microbes. Controlled experiments have repeatedly demonstrated that the combined effect of increased digestion and feed intake have an enormous impact on digestible feed intake. Digestible feed intake, which is similar to TDN intake, can be increased by over 30%, yielding more energy to support growth, reproduction, and milk production. The feed in a drum advantage increases forage utilization by 33.6%. University research proven. Fortified with essential vitamins and minerals. The feed in a drum is available with 12% to 30% protein. Year-round feeding applications. Self-fed, safe, and convenient. Predictable consumption and economical.